Hey guys, this is Vaughn from exactremedy.com. If you would leave a comment or subscribe, I would highly appreciate. Now we're going to talk about a very interesting book. By the way, this is not the cover because I put this on there. I have a tendency with some books to really reorganize them. You might get a real feel for how I do this on some of these books, but by looking at this one. But this is probably like one of my coolest ones I've done. So this book was falling apart. Well, I'll tell you what the book is first of all. It's called Mind, Body, Energetics. I kind of covered the front, so I got to look inside here. Towards a Dynamic Model of Health by Mark Seam. With Joan Kaplan. Now it's funny, if you look inside here, I got like all sorts of different things I've pasted inside here. This book was falling apart. It had like really crappy binding, so I cut it and I rebound it. Which I think you should do to books that are apart that are useful. And then I indexed, or tabbed, or whatever you want to call this right here. Put these tabs on to help me just find, for example, like real quick, I could find, bladder channel real quick. I could just quickly here, just show you, like, oh, I want to look at the gallbladder channel. There it is. Boom, right there. So it's pretty useful to do stuff like this, and I have. So anyway, just a few words about this book. I really like this guy's work. He's an acupuncturist. He's been inspired by, I guess, like the French school of acupuncture, and probably some other schools or whatever. But the point is that it's like when you read the materials in here, you get a real sense of the spirit of acupuncture. Because there's like a lot of books that are like really kind of like robotic. They're like, well, in the 18th century, the great philosopher of Chinese medicine or whatever, something like this, right? And mentioned this, and we just go with that track. This is different. The attitude and philosophy, it's like redefining it and looking at the clinic and looking at his experience, looking at his own body, looking at the experience of other people in the clinic and acupuncturists, and redefining, getting that language that that the Chinese have developed in these methods, and kind of like revamping them and freshening them up and using them they're simplifying them in some ways, and making them more elaborate in other ways. And I think it's very interesting. It's very promising. And I got a couple of his other books, and they're very cool. They're very cool books. And he really gets into the dynamics. I mean, for anyone that's looking into understanding the body and medicine and the mind and health and disease and all that kind of stuff from like a very kind of constitutional perspective, this is a must-have book, because you'll get an understanding of Chinese medicine from a very deep perspective. I mean, this guy's a very deep thinker. And I mean, I love how, like, for example, the phenomenology of the upper zone. So he breaks this down into the upper zone. Then you have the middle zone, which is like, giving and receiving, gastrointestinal complaints, right? And you have the lower zone, which is the, genitourinary function. Then the phenomenology of the musculoskeletal system. And it talks about really how the mind and the body are connected, and through this Chinese perspective, but from it's really fresh. That's the best way I could say. It's really fresh, thoughtful, and you get to see that this isn't something that he just regurgitated from something else. He's really spent a lot of time looking at it and coming up with stuff and seeing stuff that doesn't work or stuff that does work or whatever, and putting something together that's quite useful and it's quite interesting. I mean, there's a lot of like acupuncture patterns and stuff in here that points that you can use to deal with certain conditions. And I think, yeah, that's what it is. Now I remember looking at the inside here. There's like the French style of acupuncturists here, where they kind of get into these, like, there's like 6 or 8 types, like body types or constitution types. They're not just body, like mind-body types, and how to identify and deal with all those different types. So anyway, it's a cool book. I'd give it, like, let's say if I was going to go from like 0 to 10, 10 being the best, I'd give it like probably about a a 7, 8. If you're an acupuncturist, probably more like probably even higher, like a 10, 9.